Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile. With me, it's back again, Alistair McKenzie. Hello Alistair, how are you?
Hello, yeah, very good. Had a great time over in Rome last weekend, apart from the 90 minutes of watching Lazio. But yeah, it was a bit of a shame how that game panned out, but you've already reviewed that one, so we don't necessarily have to go back over it.
Yeah. I blame you honestly, but you knew this already.
I blame myself.
Obviously, it's your fault. You know it. What shall we say? It's always a weird weekend when Lazio doesn't play. I don't know. I feel like empty, like something is missing. Like I forgot to do something. You know, you arrive at 8 o'clock at night. I said, I should have done this thing, but why I forgot? And then you remember, yes, Lazio's not playing tonight. So it's a weird weekend. Something is missing. I don't know if you have the same impression.
Well, yeah, and I think international breaks are kind of frustrating at the best of times, really, especially as a Scotland fan. But it's even worse when it's an international break and it's just friendlies at such a crucial time of the season, and it does feel just completely meaningless, really. Obviously, there's a World Cup coming up, so people are trying to get a bit more excited around it because of that. But yeah, obviously Italy aren't going to the World Cup either, so there's not an awful lot of excitement to be had. But on the bright side, I think it's come at a good time for Lazio. It's quite clear that the squad has been tired, and obviously a fair few players are with their international teams, but for the ones who aren't, it's quite a good opportunity for them to be able to actually take a few days off and recover a bit.
Yeah, it's I didn't want to jump in, but yeah, it's not only Scotland who find it useless. Even for Italy, it's not very a very great moment for a national break. We are probably in the worst situation ever. You know, we don't have a manager, an official manager yet. A lot of pieces still missing. You know, they talk about revolution, then they call up Buffon and things like that. So the only positive thing about this international break, as you were saying, is that probably some of the Lazio players that were very tired and very fatigued had a couple of days to recover. Luckily, some of the players that was called in the national team, like Milinkovic, Savic, Lukaku, have come back to Rome to train and relax. Now there's a problem with Lukaku's knee, and looks like he had it for a bit now. So maybe this time is very good for him to recover and the other players to relax a little bit before the end of the season, that is going to be really tough and really important at the same time. And from next Sunday on, there are not going to be much breaks for Lazio because they're still in Europe League. So no time for relax now. It's time to put everything aside and focus on the last 9 matches, or how Luis Alberto said, the last 9 finals.
Yeah, well, I saw that we've got 11 matches in 2 months coming up now, which is pretty full on. I think the one frustration is that Ciro Immobile is still being used by Italy for 90 minutes, and he's one guy who we really need to take a break, I think, and he's been quite noticeably tired compared to the rest of the squad. So when you're looking at players who you'd like to be able to get an opportunity to rest up a bit, that at the moment he would be one of the main ones, but he's not really getting that chance. So hopefully Italy's... You've got... is it England next?
Yes.
Yeah, so hopefully... Yeah, he doesn't play a full game in that game, and they can actually give him a bit of a chance to recover.
And talking about Immobile, it's funny because he plays 90 minutes for Italy, and all you get from Italian fans is complaints saying that Immobile is not a very good player, not that type of player that can lead Italy to the World Cup, etc., which really drive me nuts. You know, Ciro Immobile is top scorer in the last 2 years, pretty much, and still people complaining because in one match in the national team he didn't score. As you said, he's retired. He scored so much, he played so much, that I think it's absolutely normal that he doesn't perform as well in the national team.
Yeah, and yes, I don't know, Marco. Yeah, it's funny what you said there about the idea of a revolution being needed in the national team and Buffon being called up. I suppose Marco Parolo as well. You know, this is a guy who's uh, he's had a pretty decent season with Lazio, and he's a great player, but he's hardly the fresh new wave of Italian players. And I wouldn't have been too upset to see Parolo being left out of Di Biagio's squad and get him some time to recover as well, because obviously he's got amazing stamina, but he is getting a bit older now. So, yeah, I was surprised to see him in the squad and starting the game, to be honest.
Yes, I agree. But the thing is, you're playing against Argentina, and so you already lose 2-0. But you don't want to be destroyed by Argentina. So you have to play those players that give you guarantees. And we saw it with Lazio. Parolo is one of those players that you know what you're going to get. He's going to give everything in the 90 minutes. And so I believe Di Biagio didn't want to play against Argentina without those type of players. And to be honest with you, everybody say Donnarumma is the future. But let's be honest, this season he hasn't played at that level. So if I have to choose to play in a final, one between Donnarumma and Buffon, I have no doubts. I still play Buffon. So that's probably, going back to Italy, the most concerning problem is that we don't see those youngsters that should, come up and play at the level of the top players of the World Cup of 2006. We're still relying on those type of players.
Yeah, and especially I think with the fact that he's come up from the under-21s, I think it's surprised not to see more of those guys coming through. But anyway, yeah. So hopefully these two particularly aren't going to be too knackered by the time they recover. I mean, come back from the international break having not really achieved much by playing in 2 friendly games.
Yeah. Yes, that's we were all quite happy saying finally these players get a break, but Immobile and Parolo, that are probably the players that have played more, didn't have a break. It's good to see Leva going to visit the Colosseum in Rome. He needed a break, even though he was playing really well, but he's not getting any younger. So when he can have a weekend of relax, I think it's going to be really useful for Lazio.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that there was any kind of shout for Alessandro Murgia? I didn't see how he got on with the under-21s. Was he starting?
I didn't see it, honestly. I have to be honest. I don't care that much for the national team, especially when it's this stage and it's not the World Cup final, etc. I know that Palombi played a little bit, and it's good because he's not playing that much with Salernitana these days, which is a little bit surprising. But yeah, I think Murgia is the only type of player that instead needs to play a little bit more in the national squad, as he didn't have that much time with Lazio. And Marusic played 65 minutes in the match against Cyprus with the national team.
Yeah.
While
well, I suppose.
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, I suppose the one thing, even if we do have slight concerns about some of the guys who are going away on international duty and playing matches, is that with this run of busy games coming up, having Benevento on this weekend is, the ideal opposition, I suppose. I mean, they are perhaps more dangerous than people would give them credit for, but if you were going to choose one team in Serie A to get started again with, it's quite a good opportunity for us to be able to go out there and get the kind of momentum going in the right direction again.
Yes, even though, and I said this very often in the podcast, Lazio struggle more against these type of teams that come only to defend, to put a bus in front of the goal, rather than with teams that let you play like Juventus. So I will always feel a little bit concerned, especially because what happened against Bologna. You go immediately down, then you struggle to win a match, and you lose points. So it's really important to win the next match. And as you were saying, it's not going to be easy because Benevento needs points.
Yeah, and failing to beat them as well would be an absolute. It would really hammer the morale of this team. Given how much of an opportunity that is, I think anything less than a win is going to immediately bring the confidence back down again. So yeah, I mean it's an absolutely crucial one, really. I see what you mean about it's always difficult to break through teams who are looking to soak up the pressure and not do an awful lot else. But I think Bologna have a lot more to them than Benevento do.
Yeah, obviously.
In terms of what they're capable of on the counter-attack and the actual attacking players they've got. So it should, it's not a game I have particular fears about. I think with the preparation that Inzaghi's going to be able to put into this game, hopefully we can see the reaction that we're looking for.
Yes, I agree. And we were talking about player who needed a rest. Felipe Anderson doesn't need a rest. He's really on form, and again in the friendly match against this weekend, he showed that he's really in great shape, and he could be the surprise of the end of the season for Lazio, especially as we said with the other players a little bit tired, like Immobile, etc. He can step in. The biggest problem I fear, and I hope Inzaghi is working on it, is how to play Felipe Anderson with Immobile and Luis Alberto, and maybe add Milinkovic-Savic in the mix.
Well, I think the last part is the crucial part, actually, is getting Milinkovic-Savic in that team as well, because he's obviously he's found a way of getting Alberto and Anderson in the same team, which is by dropping Alberto a bit deeper, but then putting Milinkovic-Savic in there as well, as you do lose, you then lose Marco Parolo from the side in order to keep the balance of the team, and it becomes very difficult to actually, to keep that team balance. Mm-hmm. I don't think he necessarily needs to, though. I don't think he needs to try and find a way of shoehorning all these players in. I think he's comfortable rotating the team, and he's got the ability to change the game halfway through by bringing good players off the bench. So I think Anderson at the moment has to be considered the number one choice behind the striker, if I'm honest. Although I was interested to see Luis Alberto put up a post, I think it was yesterday, the day before, and he'd been out for dinner with his mental coach, and basically he's got this guy who's been helping him out with his mentality to actually cope psychologically with the pressures that he's been facing this season, and apparently he's found it incredibly helpful. So it's interesting, I think, first of all, that he's been able to recognise that he needs help with that aspect of his game, and then that he's gone to seek that help, and apparently it's going well for him. So it'll be interesting to see if that makes a difference in terms of his form, because the way he played in the first half of the season, he's not really been continuing that level in recent months, although he's not the only one.
Yes, you're true. I wonder if it's a deeper form of the player, or even, at the beginning of the season, he was a surprise. So now everybody knows it. For example, Bologna was marking Lucas Leiva for all the match, and this created some issue for Lazio. And I think now, even with Luis Alberto, all the other manager knows his strength, so it's difficult for him to shine like before. So I think that's a problem. Ramiel Gandhi on Twitter. Here's a question for you. Why are you even doing a podcast today?
Well, I think we're all asking ourselves that question at the moment. We're model professionals, Rami. That's the reason, and obviously the international break has lots of talking points.
Yeah, I thought we didn't want to leave you alone.
Yeah, we don't want to leave people without some Lazio chat, their weekly Lazio chat.
Yeah, yeah, and we enjoyed it. Even though I have to speak with you, it's still fun talking about Lazio.
Yeah, you got a week off, and now you're back to the old grind.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, I don't know if you agree. I think this is even part of the reason why Lazio is performing not as well as before. Other teams have found a solution to stop Lazio, and that's why Felipe Anderson is very important now, I believe, to change things a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely been a big part of it, and I think something that we've touched on before, which is the fact that Inzaghi's been less flexible tactically this season than he was last, and I think that's helped teams actually. It's made it a bit easier for them because we've constantly played in the same formation, and the selection, it's most of the time fairly obvious what the options are going to be in any position. I mean, the one exception to that was the lineup that he chose last weekend, which I think came as a massive surprise to me. I mean, obviously, a lot of it was injury enforced, but an incredibly attacking lineup he selected there, and it didn't really work. And obviously, he recognised it didn't work by changing things at half time and bringing on two subs. So I think it would be nice to see a bit more unpredictability from the Lazio team instead of just relying on the players to turn it on again. I think a few different combinations need to come together in order for us to reach the level we were at the start of the season. And for me, that includes Inzaghi being a bit less predictable.
Yes, changing something around, but not as much as against Bologna. I thought, as I said in the last podcast, Nani never found the position, and I don't think it's his fault. It's simply that area was so full, and Felipe Anderson playing that far away on the left was not his best. He can play there. We saw it last year, but it's not his best position. So I hope Inzaghi learns from his mistakes. He's still a manager with a lot. He's still a young manager. He still have to improve. So I hope that this is a lesson he will learn and don't make the same mistakes again.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's almost a strange thing that he got it right so early on and has since kind of gone on to get it wrong. I feel like it should be in reverse order. But I think he's come so far down this road now at this point in terms of not being willing to switch to a back four and change his formation too much that I think we're too deep into the season for that to now be an option for him. So instead he's tinkering with different ways he can line up the team. And actually, you know, when you do put Nani into that team, for example, and Nani's not been given many opportunities this season, so when you do give him the chance to start a match, you do expect a lot more from him. And he was just completely anonymous in that game. You know, he didn't really even notice he was on the pitch.
He did a couple of things, but you know, you expect much more from a player like him.
Exactly, and especially a player who should be doing absolutely everything to prove that they deserve more time, because this is a guy who's clearly the number 3 option in that position. So he needs to really be, when he gets these opportunities, absolutely, you know, battering down the door looking to keep that position. And so it was strange to see him kind of hiding away a bit and not being the guy who's trying to dictate things and get things moving.
Yeah, I agree. Wow, Rami, we are a little bit upset. You haven't heard our podcast for months. Wow, you were our number 1 fan. What happened? I blame Alistair as usual.
The quality has been a slow decline, really.
By the way, I just found out that Scaloni, do you remember Lionel, is part of the Argentina national squad. He's part of the trainers. I didn't know that.
Who was that? Sorry, I didn't hear you there.
Lionel Scaloni. Do you remember?
Oh, right, yeah. He's in the Argentina national team.
Yeah, he's one of the manager there. I don't know if he's doing the defense or something like that.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. I'm a little bit
He's
surprised.
not playing for them, though.
They didn't call him this time, no. But by the way, as we talk about Nani, rumors in Rome that his loan, he won't be confirmed next season, so he's going back to Valencia at the end of the summer. I don't know if I can say it's a big surprise. I believe when he came to Rome, he expected to play much more, but with the explosion of Luis Alberto, with Felipe Anderson, etc., he didn't find the space, and it was hard to give him enough space. So the rumors are that both Tar and Nani agree that at the end of the season he will go back to Spain, and Lazio won't buy him at the end of the 1-year loan. I'm not surprised. I'm a little bit sorry. I thought he could be one of the biggest surprise in positive of this summer. Instead, he didn't.
No, he hasn't, and I think the concern I raised when we first signed him was that he's basically a winger, and there's no position for a winger in this team, and he should have been able to adapt better to the central role, I think. And to be fair to him, he hasn't had that many minutes on the pitch to get his chance. But at the same time, that a lot of that must be coming from what he's doing on the training pitch, not being convincing Inzaghi, and then the time he has had on the pitch, he's not been particularly memorable. So for me, it's the right move to let him go back and not spend any more money on him, because especially at that age, I think in order to actually make it worthwhile, you really need to make sure that you're getting someone who's going to be producing for you. And it's been a bit of a flop, really.
Yes, as you were saying, he didn't have that many chances, and often when he played with Casado, etc. So I think playing near Luis Alberto and Felipe Anderson would have changed things. But I mean, it's difficult to pick Nani instead of Luis Alberto and Felipe Anderson, especially how they play. I think the biggest issue for him was he got injured while Casado and Felipe Anderson in particular were injured, where he had more chance to play, and as he was injured, he wasn't able to play there. So that's one of the reasons why he didn't convince Inzaghi. Arvid, why so few fans at the stadium during the season? The team needs support to reach the Champions League. Alf, do you want to go first?
Well, I don't think that's an easy question to answer. I don't think there's any one answer to that question, but I would agree with it. I think I was shocked, actually, going on Sunday by how poor the attendance was. Obviously, it was a Sunday night game, so timing-wise, it's not the best for a lot of people. But at the same time, you're talking about €10 for a ticket. I mean, that's absolutely nothing. I pay 3 times that much to go and watch Scottish football games, which are by far worse quality a lot of the time. So, I think a lot of these fans don't know how good they've got it, actually, and should be really getting to every game to back this team, because it's going to be playing a big part in whether we get to the Champions League or not. I don't know. Like I say, I don't think there's any simple answer to it. Sometimes the attendances will be lower one week because of the timings, and sometimes it's just down to the fact that people would rather watch it at home because they can. So
yes, that's one of the.
I don't know.
That's one of the two biggest reasons, I think. Well, probably there are 4 big reasons. The first one is obviously you can watch every Serie A match at home. It's not like the Premier League, where you can see only some of them. All Serie A matches are broadcast live on Sky and Premium, and some other people are lazy and prefer to watch them at home. Second, the Olimpico is probably not the best stadium to watch a match. If you go in Curva Nord, you don't understand, you don't see very well the match. You can't understand what's happening. So you have to go back home and watch it again to understand how things went. And it's not the best Italian stadium, so that doesn't help. The economical crisis a little bit explains something, even though, as you were saying, that's a fact that Lazio, the prices of Lazio ticket are very low this season, and this is one of the reasons the Lazio marketing is trying to bring more people to the stadium, putting very low prices for the tickets, especially for the Curva Nord. And the fourth, there's still people against Lotito, and they think if we don't go to the stadium, then Lotito doesn't get money, and if Lotito doesn't make money with Lazio, then he's going to sell Lazio. So there, even after a good season, there are a lot of Lazio fans that doesn't go to the stadium because they don't want to help Lotito, which, to be honest, they simply doesn't help Lazio. Lotito doesn't care that much because he still get money out of other things. So it's a shame, but yeah, I mean, if you're a Lazio fan in Rome and you don't go to watch Lazio, then you're the guy to blame. The players are doing all they can to do the best. They need a little bit of support, especially in this moment in time when they are struggling. They're not in the best shape, and they need the fans to cheer them up and support them in the tough moments.
Yeah, and the tough moments are often going to be these games, like playing teams like Bologna, and not just, when Juventus or the Derby or the Milan clubs come to town. I mean, obviously the attendances are much better for the big games, but it's these smaller games that we're dropping points in, and one of the reasons for that will be that there's not as good an atmosphere at the game. And I mean, the atmosphere, to be honest, in that Bologna game was as muted as I've ever heard it, actually, and a lot of that was down to the fact that the Curva Nord didn't turn up for the first 15 minutes, but even so, it was still it still felt a bit flat, and there were a lot of angry people around. But I think it's worth taking a step back from time to time. Obviously, we're all frustrated about how the form's been going, but we're still in a very good situation and having a very good season. So I think the negativity isn't going to help.
No. And, Lazio fan is usually very negative. It's always ready to blame or complain the performance of a player or the manager, etc. So maybe that's even another reason they're seeing the team performing worse than before, and they don't want to go to the stadium. I don't know. But yeah, it's a shame. And I hope when they're going to build a new stadium, they're not going to be a lot of excuse to not go there, because it's going to be brand new, it's going to be closer, so it's going to be better to watch the match. But it's not something that's going to happen very soon. So the team needs the support of the fan, and especially, it's funny because for us that are living outside Italy and who dream to go to watch Lazio every Sunday, it's hard to understand Lazio fan in Rome that find every excuse to not go. It's raining. I went out Saturday. I don't have money to go at the stadium on Sunday and things like that. So I can understand for us it's more complicated to understand what's happening to Lazio fan in Rome.
Yeah, it's a shame, and hopefully, it's good that the prices have been lowered. I think that was something I was frustrated about in previous years, was if you have high ticket prices and low attendances, then you're not satisfying anyone. So I was impressed to see how much the ticket prices have dropped. And I think that's a good idea, actually, a good way of getting people in. But obviously it didn't happen on Sunday. But for a stadium of that size, to actually generate an atmosphere, you need a lot of people in there. And always the Curva Nord's the section that's relied on to provide the atmosphere, but you do ideally want more than just the Curva Nord in the stadium to actually be able to produce that. And like I said, it wasn't really like that on Sunday.
No, I agree. Um, Other things we wanted to talk about, the De Vrij situation. It has been a funny week. We were talking before starting the podcast. They said like 2 weeks ago that De Vrij have already decided to go to Inter, that everything was signed and decided. And then 3 days ago, Gazzetta comes out and said, no, De Vrij hasn't decided. Barcelona is close to signing. And then yesterday again, no, it's all done. Inter is signed the player. When these things happen, it means that nothing is decided. It's not true that the player have signed for Inter. It's not true that he made his mind and he's going to Inter. I think he still have to decide everything.
I was going to say, surely you're not suggesting that the Italian press are making things up.
Yes, absolutely. And to be honest, with Gazzetta and Inter happen very often. They link pretty much every player to Inter, so I'm not surprised De Vrij is one of them.
Yeah, and it's the Milan newspaper linking a player to a Milan club as well, which is always worth remembering. But it's it wouldn't surprise me. You know, it's obviously I don't really buy into these reports until we see something more concrete happen. But it wouldn't surprise me in the least to see De Vrij end up at Inter. It wouldn't surprise me, but it would disappoint me. You know, I mean, having seen Hernandez and Candreva go there, and it's not worked out for them in terms of furthering their career. It would be quite disappointing to see him move to a club that is, you know, having a season that if it's not on a par with us, it's below us really, because they don't have the European adventure going on as well. So it would just be a real lack of ambition from De Vrij, in my opinion, to make that move. And another hugely frustrating one for us to actually lose one of our best players to a direct rival, which makes the whole thing worse. I mean, it's bad enough as it is that we're losing him for no money, but for him to go to Inter would, it'd be a hard one to take.
Yes, and you have to see if it's the player deciding or the agents, because if it's going to be the player, then I believe he's going to look for a team that's going to compete for the Champions League, that have ambition of winning the title somewhere. If it's the manager, the agent, then yes, it could be Inter, because they're going to pay him, they're going to pay the agent, a bigger fee than maybe Barcelona, something else. But, I mean, if you're leaving Lazio because you want to win, etc., then Inter probably is not your best option. So we're going to see. As I said before, I'm not convinced that everything is said and done. I believe there's going to be still a lot of discussion around, rumors around De Vrij, because Manchester United could come out and from nowhere to buy him, and a lot of Premier League clubs could be interested in a player like that. So we're going to see what happens. But yeah, it's a shame he doesn't stay with Lazio, and I'm going to be very curious to see what happens, because Luis Felipe showed to be a very good player. He's still young. He still have to improve. He can be the solution, but then Lazio have to sign another player to play near him to give Lazio another solution.
Yeah, well, one of the names that's appeared a lot has been Holger Badstuber. I don't know what you think of that. I mean, obviously these are just rumours, but obviously a guy who was immensely successful as a Bayern Munich player, but since then has had injury problems, and to be honest, he's gone off my radar a bit, so I'm not too sure what to think about
that. You know, when yesterday or Friday, I don't remember, another quote came out from him saying that Miro Klose talked to him about Lazio and said that it's a very good option, etc. What I do all the time when this type of things happen, I go on the website of that market. So, you know, if it's Germany, so I go and look for Badstuber quotes in Germany, and it looks like he spoke, but he didn't say a single word on Lazio. There's an interview of him saying that he's going to look for a better team this summer, etc. No words about Lazio, no words about Miro Klose. Then I look deeper, And there is, I don't remember the German agency, we use it as well at goal, reporting, Gazzetta dello Sport, saying that Bastuber said to Gazzetta, he didn't have an interview with them, saying that Miro Klose talked with him about Lazio. So you can understand that he didn't say it. It's completely false. There's no real quote from Bastuber to the German press saying, Miro Klose talked to me about Lazio, it's a very good team, etc. So I'm not convinced at all there's a discussion about Bastuber coming to Lazio. I hope I made it clear.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes hard to know what to believe. And, well, yeah, I mean, obviously he's a German international and Miroslav Klose is our most famous Germany international of recent years. So probably that link's just been put together. And, well, it's interesting to hear that there's probably not much truth to it. I mean, it's going to just be the start, I think, of a whirlwind of rumours really between now and the end of the season, because it's not often you've got a situation where you already know one of your star players is leaving, which means that that's definitely a position Lazio have to fill in the transfer market. I mean, the other obvious one that's already starting to fill up the newspaper column inches is who the new striker is going to be as well, with the assumption that there will be a new striker. So, I mean, we're still in March here. There's still quite a lot of time to go, but already lots of rumours circulating.
Well, all good teams, big teams, usually in this moment in time trying to find the profile of the player they need and maybe start even contacting the agents to find a deal. And let's not forget that this summer things are going to change, right? The transfer market will close before the start of the season or after the first round of Serie A. So, sorry, knowing how slow Lotito and Tare are usually to close a deal, they have to hurry up and start already now working on the deals, because the transfer market window will be shorter this summer. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Tare and Lotito were already looking for the replacement for De Vrij and a Vice Immobile. And there are rumors about Caicedo. He could leave just like Nani. He didn't play that much, so maybe the replacement could be even more than one.
Yeah, I think Caicedo's an interesting one. It seems a bit unclear still. I think apparently Tare is actually quite keen on him staying, but obviously his opportunities have been limited. And it's quite clear by this point as well that he's not the kind of quality we need, particularly if we reach the Champions League. We can't really rely on Caicedo to be leading the line if there's a problem with Ciro. Although I was reading about him earlier today, and I was surprised to see that actually statistically he does stand up quite well against his competition. I mean, if you take Juventus aside, who obviously have Dybala and Higuain, and you look at the alternatives that the other big Serie A teams have to their main striker, so the likes of Eder and Patrick Schick and Andre Silva, actually Caicedo's goal per minute ratio is really not too bad. I mean, his number of appearances to goals isn't great, but actually when you look at the amount of minutes he's had on the pitch and the fact he's managed to score 4 times, it's I think it turns out as being about 10 games worth of minutes to 4 goals and 3 assists, which is not a bad return, considering he's often brought on late in the game and not given much of a chance to get into the match before he makes an impact. So I'm not saying that I'd be happy for him to be the Vice Immobile and to be the main man next season, but I wouldn't be too disappointed to see him stay on for another season as a kind of third choice in that option, because I think it is important to have 3 players ready to go in that position in case of an injury crisis.
And then we have to see what happened with Rossi, Palombi, and Okonomidis. I'm a little bit disappointed from the performance of Rossi and Palombi with Salernitana. They started well, now they're not playing anymore, so that's not a very good sign. Economidis is playing very well, but I don't know. Do you think the Australian league is obviously it's not a Serie A level, but I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to come back anymore. Maybe he's happy there. So we're gonna see. I think Lazio need to find another striker anyway in this transfer market. Probably 2 if Nani leaves.
Well, something we asked our followers about earlier this week was Manolo Gabbiadini, because he's a name that won't go away as well. And I thought it was quite an interesting debate, because he seems to be a guy that divides opinion quite a lot in terms of whether he'd be a good option for Lazio or not. Obviously, we don't know how serious these rumours are. I think it's more or less just because he's an Italian striker who looks to be on the way out of his club, and Lazio are a team who'll need a striker. But I don't know, what would you think if that became more of a concrete suggestion?
Yeah, I think he's an option. I think he could be. I know he's interested to. He wants to go back to Italy with Southampton. Is he playing with Southampton?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. He started really well last season, and now things are not going really well. So he scored just 4 goals this season, if I'm not wrong, and for a striker, it's not that much. So his performance have dropped a little bit, but he's still young. I think the problem with Gabbiadini, he's a player that needs to feel the confidence of the manager. He needs to feel that the manager trusts him. So I don't know, if he comes to Rome, does he feel that Inzaghi trusts him, or he's going to be like when he was at Napoli? Sarri and Inzaghi are very different, but I don't know. I think he's a very good player, but he never showed it completely. After Sampdoria, he never played at that level. So, yep.
Well, there's a few things about him, I think. One of those things is that, the last time we signed an out-of-form striker from a foreign club who wanted to come back to Italy, it went very well. Obviously, talking about Immobile. And Gabbiadini has in the past proven that he can be a very good, effective Serie A striker. The other thing is that Southampton are in a relegation battle. There's still a relatively good chance of them going down. They've just changed managers, so we'll see what impact that has. But if they were relegated, he would be available for a cut price as well, which makes the move a lot more realistic in my mind than it would be to sign him outright from a Premier League team. And he's also fairly versatile. I mean, there's more to him than Caicedo, for example, in terms of the abilities he has and the number of roles he'd be able to fulfill on a pitch. And I think he'd be a good option if they did go down and we were able to get him for a good price. I'd be pretty happy to see him come in, to be honest. In my mind, he seems like, obviously, like you say, he needs his confidence back, and Inzaghi is a guy who forms great relationships with his players and has been able to manage any kind of dressing room issues very well so far. So I would be fairly confident Inzaghi would be the right guy to kind of get the best out of him again. And as an alternative to Immobile, I think he'd be a pretty good option.
Shall we get even Wesley Hood back at that point?
Well, bring him back for Stefan de Vrij, and we've got a new Dutch defender where one left.
That would be amazing, yeah? Maybe now that de Vrij's not there, he would come back.
Yeah, he's probably kicking himself at this point, when he probably would have been in the team a lot more this season if he'd been a bit more patient about it.
Yep. Rami, once one of our biggest fans, is tweeting what will happen to Hood if Southampton goes down. Well, I don't know. I don't know what type of deal there is with Southampton. Obviously, I don't believe he would be very happy. I mean, he moved there because he wanted to play more and confirm his spot in the national squad. Going in the Championship wouldn't be a great solution. So that's why I'm saying maybe there's a chance he can come back to Lazio. That would be a very nice option, especially considering that De Vrij is leaving. And he can play both left and central, so he would be a very interesting solution for Lazio. And he already knows Simone Inzaghi well, so that could be an option, I believe.
It would be, I mean, we are talking quite hypothetically here, but I mean, it would be quite something to, I can't remember the exact fee we got for him, but to be able to buy him back for less than we've sold him for just a year later would be peak Lotito. I mean, that would be absolutely incredible business. But you know, I mean, there's a lot of these options really with the you know, the squads, and well, particularly in the Premier League, I'd say this season, there's a lot of talent in those squads that look like they could be heading for relegation. So it's potentially quite a good market to look into.
Yeah, I think it's 60 million euros, something like that. It was for Wesley Hood, so that was really good. Let's see if we can get it back for cheap, or maybe on loan. You know, who knows?
Yeah,
yeah. Even West Ham is nearly going down this season. Huh? Surprise.
Yeah, it's really tight down there. It's obviously the title race in England hasn't been very interesting, but the relegation battle's pretty close. Yeah, so yeah, I was, like you say, I think the Tari and Lotito will already be getting an idea of who they want to make moves for, but things like that, I suppose, that you can only wait until the end of the season, and circumstances change in terms of players who will want to leave clubs if they're relegated, or players who have relegation release clauses in their contracts. And yeah, that it does get interesting around then. I would like to see us actually move a bit faster in the market this year, and I still didn't feel like Inzaghi had enough time with his squad and his new players last season. Particularly if we're getting Champions League football. I think the earlier you can get a really good squad together, the better. Makes a huge difference.
Yes, and as I said before, don't forget that the transfer market window is closing earlier this year, so Lotito has to hurry up. I was thinking Chicharito, that would be a good signing, or do you think the best is behind him?
Yeah, I think so, actually, to be honest. I've not seen an awful lot of him, I'll admit, this season, but what I have watched of him, I've not been very impressed. I think he's actually a fairly one-dimensional player, and did well at United for a time, did well at Leverkusen, but I think he's not impressed at West Ham, and he's at the kind of wrong end of his career, I would say. Yeah. I think for me, someone like Gabbiadini is a bit more appealing.
He's still 29 though, and have international experience, so you know, it could be interesting. But honestly, I hope that the most important signing for next season would be the Portuguese Pedro Neto. I mean, I believe next year he's going to be part of the team, and not only, you know, appearing on the bench eventually sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to get a sight of him at some point this season. He's been on the bench a few times now, but
I don't think he's going to play.
No, and I think that intention has been pretty clear all season long. But yeah, I mean, he is a guy that people seem to be quite excited about. Hopefully, he's worth it.
Yeah. To be honest, well, we have to see what happened. What's the situation in the last days of the Serie A? But if I'm not wrong, it's Lazio Inter, the last one. So maybe there's everything still on that can happen, and you won't probably let Pedro Neto play on that type of match. But if it's over, you know, maybe you give him a chance. There's Crotone Lazio before, so, you know, don't think there are many opportunities for him to play right now, because Lazio Benevento, then there's Europe League, Udinese Lazio, the Derby, Fiorentina Lazio, Lazio Sampdoria, you know, a lot of tough match still to come. So I don't see Inzaghi giving him the time to play. Maybe the last minutes of a match that it's pretty much over. But
no, I think if it was going to happen, it would have already happened earlier on in the season. The Europa League group stages, the Cittadella Coppa Italia match. These were the opportunities really to play these guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, that we didn't see him playing against Cittadella, but can happen sometimes. Ramil Gandhi asking, can we go for Papu Gomez again? Yes, we can, but he's not getting younger, If we say that Chicharito is old, then Papu Gomez, plus he's not having the best season of his career at the moment.
Yeah, I think last summer was the time to go for him, really, if we were going to. And I think he signed a new contract last summer as well, didn't he? So it would probably be quite an expensive signing to actually be able to take him off Atalanta. And he'd probably be quite hard to convince to leave that club at this point, given the role he's taken on there. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we want people at a certain stage of their careers, and he's probably a bit further on than we'd like.
Yeah, probably you're getting him for 80 million euros, and he's already 30, he will turn 31, so, you're paying a player a lot for maybe 1-2 seasons, not more. So I don't think if it's worth it. Maybe you should go for a youngster at that point.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a youngster, but someone
younger,
someone hungry, someone with a point to prove, and still kind of keen to make an impression on the big stage. And
yeah, I think
Champions League is the absolute key to all of this. I mean, that's going to be such a crucial part of our transfer strategy this summer, is whether or not we've got Champions League football to coax people in with, because it's an automatic group stage spot as well. So it's not even like a few years ago being able to say we've got a playoff. I mean, we can actually tell potential signings that they're getting 6 matches minimum of Champions League football, and that exposure is what players are looking for, really. So that's going to be absolutely crucial in terms of the quality and the level of players we're really going to be able to go out and find.
Yes, I agree, and so it's going to be interesting to see how many players we are able to reach or be interested to sign for Lazio. I think it's going to be really important to sign to reach the Champions League. There are rumors about Emiliano Sala from Nantes, if I'm not wrong. He had a good season. Now I don't know. Lazio have been linked even with Everton, that it's of Grêmio, but it looks like it's going to be a little bit difficult because Grêmio is asking for a lot of money. So 30 million euros, I don't see Lottita spending that much money for a player like that. There are rumors, as I said, about Salah. He's 27 years old, so probably the right age for a player to move to Lazio. 12 goals this season in Ligue 1. Fiorentina tried to buy him this January for 10-12 million euros, but he didn't move. So again, it could be 15-17 million euros for him this summer. Could be an interesting player.
From what I've seen of him, he keeps making me think he's the new Djordjevic.
Yeah, I can understand why.
I mean, he's not only just being a non-striker, but he's quite. I think his record's okay. It's not really, for me, impressive enough to say that we should be spending that much money on him. But to be honest, nowadays you have to spend that much money to really get any players of any quality, I suppose.
And probably what Lazio's looking now is for a striker, a real number 9. Because you have Luis Alberto, you have Felipe Anderson, you have Pedro Neto that can play in that position. So what you're needing now is a striker. a player that can step up and play instead of Immobile eventually.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Silla, I've not watched an awful lot of him, but I think he's quite a physical player. He's good in the air. So he's quite a different kind of type of striker from Immobile. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know. I mean, Caicedo is, I suppose, but I guess the problem with Caicedo is he's just never been prolific. He never has been a guy who scores a lot of goals in his entire career. So that's really, when you're replacing Ciro, who's scoring more goals than anyone else in the league, with someone who struggles to do that, then it kind of puts a lot more pressure on the rest of the team. So I think the most important thing for me is whoever comes in to back up Immobile has to be someone who's going to be more prolific and basically be able to be relied upon to be finding the net quite regularly when they get their chance, which is something Caicedo's not been able to do.
Yeah. By the way, talking about Neto and Jordao, they both started with Portugal under 20 against Germany. They lost 1-0, but they both played. Neto played 63 minutes, and Jordao went out at the end of the first half. So at least they are playing with the national squad.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, it's promising to know that they are at least being rated back in their home country as highly as we're led to believe. Because, you know, it's hard to know for sure. You get clips sometimes now and then of things that are happening in Primavera games or training sessions, but that's basically all we've got to go on. So it's encouraging to get the kind of guarantee that at least they're getting that national team selection.
Yes. And they should be playing against, again, the 27 against England. So that's going to be another interesting test and see if they play or not. I mean, we hope to have more news about them next season. I don't know if both will be able to start for Lazio, but I hope they're going to be starting to have some play time. And I think the summer friendly will be important for them. And if we see this thing with Lazio not going along to a Serie B team, then that could mean that they're really good and Inzaghi really trusts them, believe in them. Yeah.
And, you know, one thing we do know about him is that he's not afraid to give chances to young players. And I think that for young players coming through the Primavera system and getting called up to the first team occasionally, that must be really encouraging, actually, to see the number of players he's given these chances to. And this Strakosch has gone from being a youth team goalkeeper to number one, and Murja's getting chances. It must be actually quite encouraging to see that going on instead of losing faith that it's ever going to happen.
Yeah. And again, we have to give credit to Inzaghi for this. I believe we had a lot of very good players even before, but especially with a manager like Reia, he didn't have in his nature to play a youngster. He's gonna say, yeah, but I'm the player, I'm the manager who started Keita. But I think Keita was so good that you couldn't not make him debut with Lazio. I think everybody would have done it. While player like Murcia brought in the final minutes in very important matches. That's something that other manager would have not done, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. I remember talking about that at the time, and it was a very bold decision, and it paid off for him. Eddie Ray is quite a good comparison, actually. It's like night and day, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
The two of them.
Yeah, make a lot of difference. Alistair, do you have something else to talk about? Some other rumors?
I don't think so. I think my rumor collection is over for today, but I'm sure by the next time we talk there will be plenty more.
Well, luckily we're going to talk even about a very important football match, right? Because against Benevento, Lazio needs 3 points. Hopefully, no referee mistakes, and the best option for Inzaghi. Before we close this podcast, Ramel Gendia again. How will Inzaghi be judged if we get eliminated from Europe League and not finish top 4? Would it be a failed season?
Well, I think it also depends where we finish outside the top 4, because if we're fighting to the end of the season to get a place in the Champions League and we narrowly miss out and finish 5th, then I don't think so. No, I don't think it's a failure. I think qualifying for the Europa League really has to be the minimum requirement for this season, but to not make the step would be a disappointment, but it wouldn't be a failure. In my mind, it would just be consistency. But we do really have a big opportunity here to take that next step. And one thing we have done this season, which is undisputable really, is improved in terms of being able to play across various competitions. I mean, the fact that we've reached the quarterfinals of the Europa League for only the second time in 17 years is remarkable, considering the how far we've gone in the Coppa Italia as well, and the number of games we've had in Serie A. So I think it always depends on the circumstances of how the season will finish. But for me, it wouldn't necessarily be a failure, but it would be a big disappointment considering how close we are.
Yes, to be honest, it's not easy qualifying for the Champions League at the moment for Lazio. Roma is playing much better now. Inter looks to have improved and does have the European competition. Milan is coming back up. So I thought that the past month was key for Lazio, and unfortunately a lot of bad results happened. So now it's tough. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Lazio didn't make it. But let's not forget that Lazio win a Supercoppa against Juventus. You have beaten Juventus away. You have beaten Milan. So it's not that bad season. I mean, let's not forget at the beginning of the season we were fighting for a Europa League spot, and now we are finding ourselves fighting for the Champions League. And let's not forget how much money Roma, Inter, and Milan have spent this summer. I think Lazio have to improve, have to buy players to compete regularly at this level. But yeah, obviously I wouldn't be happy, but it wouldn't be that failure for me. Especially after all the things that happened, you know. We have one title already, so.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't think there's any reason to be too kind of negative about what's coming up. I mean, we don't need to be talking about whether it's going to be a failure. We've got a huge 2 months coming up and everything's still to play for. So let's remain optimistic and hope this team bounces back, starting with Benevento.
Yep, let's hope so. Finger crossed. Alistair, thank you very much. We're going to talk again Sunday, I presume, after Lazio Benevento. Everybody, subscribe to our iTunes podcast on Spreaker, rate us and review. We're going to start from next Sunday to read your best review of our podcast on iTunes. So go and do the best you can. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And thanks for listening to the podcast. Bye, Alistair. You're still there?
Yeah, cheers. Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Same.
Watching